morning. This is the New York City Board of Standards and Appeals for July 17, 2017. We'll begin with the special order calendar. Mic's on. Decision item number 1, 22702BZ, 527 East 233rd Street, the Bronx.
The applicant submitted a memo stating that open applications at the Department of Buildings that were holding up obtaining a C of O have been withdrawn, or withdrawal applications have been submitted, and other open applications are being dealt with in approximately 1 year, needs approximately 1 year to complete, which is what we asked them to show progress on removing those impositions sort of on the C of O. Photos were also provided showing some planting at the area that was shown in the previously approved plans, but the quantity of the shrubs doesn't appear to match what's shown on the plans, but I can't tell because we didn't get a revised site plan that shows the changes to the landscaping, though the last plan submitted did show, I believe, all of the striping, the signage, and the ice box, but not the landscaping, so we do need revised site plans that reflect current and proposed conditions. Anybody else?
Yeah, just in addition to the plans, in the previous plans, if we are to accept that, I think what was not shown in the previous plan were like the ice box and the curb bins, which I think, as they have indicated, is clear of any encumbrance for AD accessibility. If they were to stay, then those need to be reflected in the plan.
Yeah.
So
there is actually, the last plan that was submitted shows what looks like a very shallow ice box. Maybe it's not drawing to scale because the dimension in front of it is the same as what they showed us with the tape measure on the street, on the sidewalk. So it's a little hard to believe, but it's probably not drawn to scale is my guess. Okay.
Continued hearing items. Item number 2, 71682BZ, 20930 Northern Boulevard, Queens.
Now this morning there was something submitted on Northern Boulevard, but I don't know if it was this one.
it was on
This one?
Yes.
Okay, I wasn't able to open it, so.
It was a letter from the neighbor,
Mr. Shaka.
specifically requesting additional landscape buffer be provided along the 45th road along the fence,
Okay, so then that's
which is consistent with what
we've been
had.
talking about. So we last heard this in October, where there were 2 adjournments since then, and during that time, the applicant has improved the site to respond to most of our comments by installing opaque fencing, landscaping, signage, directional indicators on the parking surface that was requested by the community board, striping and painting. I think the site now looks much better than it did before, although I think maybe pointed out there's no planting on the northwest corner of the lot, that they're relying on that wall, on the white painted wall. Is that where the?
That's the eastern.
That's
On the eastern, oh.
I think the question along the fence that borders 45th road.
44th Road. I
Right.
thought we did have plenty.
No, I thought he was talking about also the barbed wire that was on the fence adjoining the Volvo dealership.
Right,
that was
he
then the
didn't
mid-block.
like as well.
Right.
Yeah.
That shows the fence being moved. The
Right,
fence was
yeah.
moved back. There
Barbed
shouldn't
wire
be
was
barbed
removed.
wire anymore.
Right. So I don't know if this was an old letter
Yeah.
that was before they made those changes.
Right.
Or,
Because the fence moving gave all that planting area.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm a little confused. So maybe the applicant can explain that, like go over that. And also about our request for planting on the other side, which I know they're saying the wall is tall, shouldn't need that. Maybe that's good enough. I always look at planting and
they painted that wall.
yeah, the wall looks much
Yeah,
better. Everything
so,
looks
yeah.
better, no question. But the plans weren't revised, so we didn't get a new set of plans. So we actually only have the old set that shows the fence still in the former position and no landscaping in front of it. So we do need the new fence, the new locations. Okay. Anybody else? Anything else? Okay.
Item number 3, 6594BZ, 14402 Jewel Avenue, Queens.
They requested an adjournment.
Item number 4, 1-95BZ, 117 7th Avenue South, Manhattan.
The submission now states that the facility is closed to accommodate a vertical enlargement of the building, but they state that there was a fire department violation for a wrong swinging egress door. They state that that door swing has been corrected, but they don't have a certificate of correction or anything, so we need fire department to inspect or whatever actually happens to determine that. Anybody else? Okay.
Item number 5, 7595BZ, 1635 3rd Avenue, Manhattan.
Okay, the submission states there is a sprinkler system, but no fire alarm. I don't think, of course, that fire department would be okay with the absence of a fire alarm, but importantly, it's impossible to believe that there's no fire alarm in a 42-story building. That would be a very non-compliant, dangerous tower. And in fact, if you look at the C of O and scroll all the way down to the 5th page of it or something, it says that there's a fire alarm. So that needs to be corrected, but then fire department will need to weigh in about the installation and testing. So what I suspect is the fire alarm system in the PCE space hasn't been updated. And it needs to follow, the partitions and all that kind of stuff. That needs to be done.
And it'd be helpful if they showed photos of the interior showing whatever it is they do install for the fire alarm, as well as the existing sprinkler system.
Okay.
Anything else? Item number 6, 18996BZ, 85-1012 Roosevelt Avenue, Queens.
Okay, they provided a public assembly permit that was current until May 3rd of this year because the C of O expired, so they can't extend it. And affidavits concerning soundproofing, which was a condition of the prior approval. The fire exit being only used as a fire exit because the community board didn't want that used as an access point. The use on the second floor as an office, and an argument that the razor wire should be allowed to be kept. I don't know whether fire department is okay with this, because the applicant didn't submit proof of installed fire prevention measures, although in the photos you do see exit signs, and there is a PA permit, which implies that it's been inspected for whatever kind of regulations there are for fire. I don't know how people feel about, I look at the roof and it's sort of this jumble of AC and ladders and, flats and things like that being stored up there, and razor wire, which is not very hospitable looking, but the owner argues that there's been problems there.
So you need FDNY review?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it is kind of a sad, unfortunate situation that there aren't any other better measures that is preventing vandalism, and that seems to be something that is helping not only the subject site owner but also the abutting properties. I don't know if there's a way to kind of shield it with something so that it's not visible from the street and then retain the barbed wire, but I'm kind of sympathetic to the situation.
Yeah, well, you don't want to.
So,
Right, well, I don't want to make them vulnerable to theft, but
Right.
I don't understand why barbed wire is the ultimate
dear.
solution, other than maybe it's the cheapest solution, because I don't see that on lots of two-story buildings where you've got one story and then a setback. So
Right.
I'm wondering if there's a way to alarm it, put a tripwire or some sort of alarm.
Right.
It just seems to me that barbed wire, who would want to look out their window on barbed wire? You feel like you're in a prison.
Well, and the other thing, I used to rent a space back in the day in the West 20s where we were burglarized one year 14 times. So I really, really relate to the issue of burglaries, but I have to say that the barbed wire would not have stopped the burglar because he was so creative. However, one of the things was there are no bars on the windows. you know, and there's all these incredible kinds of locking systems that are three-point locks. There's lots of ways of preventing someone from coming in. You don't care whether someone's walking on a roof, I don't think, unless the concern is they're going to walk away with your air conditioning unit, which is quite a trick if it's over a fence, right? In which case, they've come better prepared, like the burglar, who, with cutters and barbed wire, you just cut. So if you're that devoted to your cause, you're in. So I do think that this is just the cheaper way out, and I think, you know, the site is very unsightly generally. It's not pretty. So in the interests of what we always do, which is to try to make BSA regulated sites more attractive, it seems that this one needs some more thinking.
I agree. I think an alternative is in order.
Item number 7, 16898BZ, 3050 Bailey Avenue, the Bronx.
They requested an adjournment.
New cases, item number 8, 18285BZ, 20911 20th Street, Brooklyn.
Okay, because it's a new case, I talk about notice, so we have proof of notice of hearing to officials, but I didn't find in the materials proof of service of the application. Even so, we have a community board recommendation, so there must have been proof of service, but I just don't find it. Because you have to be careful when you look, and I really look to see whether that was proof of notice or proof of service. Sometimes it goes into the folder that says proof of service, but it's actually notice of hearing.
Yeah, I've looked at both of them.
Yeah, so, okay, so if we could just clarify that, but anyway, community board voted, so they had to have received a copy. The proposal is to amend the use group to 16D beverage storage from 16C contractor's establishment, although the 2011 C of O already indicates beverage storage warehouse, but it doesn't indicate a use group. I don't know how they got a C of O with no use group. I didn't think you could do that anymore. Oh, okay. You want to tell us what it says? Speak into the mic. Speak into the mic. Don't be shy.
So DOB issued a warning letter in May because the applicant changed their use group subcategory from 16C, which was the original approval, to 16D. So they issued the letter that is a warning that it may revoke, DOB may revoke.
Okay, so in other words, it's just to make sure they're here and they take care of this, right? Because
Yeah.
there's nothing more they can do than come here and take care of this.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, good to know. But still, that was pretty strange. A C of O with no use group,
Yeah.
can't figure out what that is. The architect didn't know the use group, the plan examiner didn't know either, so they just went ahead. I don't get that, but anyway. There's graffiti on the garage doors unless there wasn't at the last inspection. Graffiti removal was a condition of the prior approvals. Graffiti has to be removed immediately, not waiting until eventually. I don't know what the fire control situation is. They didn't tell us in the materials. Are there sprinklers and fire alarms? It's a different kind of storage now, so I don't think of beverage storage of like soda as being flammable, but maybe because you've got plastic and that's, so anyway, the fire department needs to weigh in on whether the fire suppression system has to be any different than what it is. Anybody else?
Based on my site visit, I did notice there were material that was stored on the sidewalk that may have been temporary because there was delivery being made, but we just need to ensure that that is just when the delivery is happening and not as a permanent solution. I did not see the graffiti because the doors were rolled up, but the photographs did indicate it, and so the signage that is there on the plan, they need to indicate the signage on the plan and also need to provide a sign analysis sheet. That's not included.
They said that this is not.
They said there was no sign.
There is a sign.
But there is.
There is a sign.
There is a sign, but they said it's not considered a sign.
Oh, how can it not be a sign?
Not be a sign.
Unless it's a not-for-profit all of a sudden or something like that?
Because I think it's not advertising.
It's still a sign. It's an accessory business sign. Okay, so anyway, it just needs, and it needs to comply.
It's no issue, it's just completeness of the package.
And needs to comply, they need to
Yeah, need to comply,
indicate, yeah. They probably, which it does because it's small. Relatively small
Yeah, it's a
sign.
relatively small sign.
Okay. Yeah, we're in R6. It needs to comply with C1 regulation.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Anybody else? No? Okay.
Item number 9, 15692BZ, 1835 Bay Ridge Parkway, Brooklyn.
Okay, I believe initially there's an error in the statement of facts concerning the date of the 20-year term's expiration, previous term. They state it's 2018, but it's actually 2034. I'd like them to verify that trash is being stored inside the building until pickup, because one of the photos they provided showed trash bags sitting in front of the steps. That's inside the property line, but that's not inside the building. And they should also verify that the top floor is only being used for conferences and educational purposes pursuant to the condition of the last approval. We were concerned that it might be used for other things, and so we need to get a verification of that.
When I did go by the site on Friday, the garbage was in the front, within their property line, but still outside, by the stairs.
So they also need to clarify when the trash pickup and delivery happens.
It could be that they're putting it out that day, because I believe it comes, Saturday morning in Brooklyn or something like that.
Okay.
Proof of notice, because this is the new case, proof of notice and service.
Well, this is actually just an
Oh, there's none.
extension of time to obtain a C of O, so there's no, yeah, thanks. I should probably state that, because it might be unclear why some don't have, okay. So it's just, for the record, our rules have a list of cases that have to provide notice to officials, and have to provide notice to officials and neighbors, and others that don't, according to the case type. Okay.
Move on. Item number 10, 15900BZ, 383 3rd Avenue, Brooklyn.
Okay, in this case, there is a requirement for proof of notice, so we have that, both notice of hearing, but I didn't see proof of service of the application to officials, although Community Board 6 held a hearing way back in November of 2015, and they voted to recommend approval on condition that the DOB violation for failure to obtain a CO is attended to, which is, of course, they need this in order to do that, but they can't sit on never obtaining a C of O, which we see so often. They should correct the error in the statement of facts considering about the existing floor area. It's incorrect. And there's a word, reference to daily refuge, which should be changed to refuse, because I was kind of, why are we refusing so many people daily? And then they need to coordinate the reference in the statement of facts to the location of the play area. One place in the statement states that it's in the side yard, another that it's in the rear yard. They need to correct dimensions of the side yard referred to in the statement of facts. The plans show it is 22 feet 6 inches wide, and I think it was described as being more like 12 feet wide. They need to clarify the outline of the zoning law, because I'm actually quite confused about whose property is what. There's an open area that's adjacent to the side yard, to which the current outdoor stair runs, and in the proposed, it's going to be a basketball court. So how are they doing that if they don't own the property and it's not on the zoning lot? And also, I didn't understand the section of the building, because we didn't get a section. Is that basketball court at the cellar level? So you enter it from cellar level? It's kind of just free association. They're proposing to change the hours of operation from 7:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. I think the school hours were very reduced, so this is more reasonable school hours, I think. I'd like to know the reason that no C of O was obtained to date, and also what's the current status of the alteration type 1 review, which they said is in was, like in February, they said it was in process and almost finished. They supplied photos that depict, let's say, it's essentially the wrong site, or only a portion of the site, because it doesn't tell you that the 5-story building is part of it, it's just that little 1-story. There's the no parking 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. sign, which was required by the prior approval, was installed in one location that's shown in a photo. This needs to be shown on the plan, and so does the extent of the no parking area has to be shown on the site plan. And if there's another sign at the other end, it needs to be shown. Also, the board granted this for a term of 10 years, which is unusual for these schools. So I'd like to know, and I didn't see anything in the resolution that sort of builds up to explaining why that happened. So I'd like the applicant to discuss why he believes, or he or she believes, it was a 10-year term. Maybe there's something in the record, in the files. Also, they should describe the bus drop-off and pickup operations, as well as car drop-off and pickup. On other schools that have a lot of buses, we get a schedule that this level gets picked up between the minutes of this 7:45 and 8, and the next group comes at 8:15, like that. The statement of facts refers to an auditorium, but the approved and existing plans call it a gym located on the 5th floor. It looks more like, according to the drawings, that the space is being modified to be a prayer space, auditorium, and cafeteria. So the statement of facts should reflect what it's being used as, what it was approved as, what it's being used as now, and what the proposed changes are. It's labeled on the drawings as a cafeteria in the proposed. So there's also a cafeteria in the cellar. So why are there 2 cafeterias? Explain that. Is that just, kind of sloppy labeling? Like, what is that? Also, there is no perishable trash storage area that I could find in the cellar near the kitchen. The existing plans also indicate that fire alarms, smoke detectors, and sprinklers are to be installed. I think, I assume they are installed because they were required to be, so the proposed drawings should indicate that they are installed, if they are, and if they're not installed, they need to be installed. Also, the proposed plans now show a cellar in the small building adjacent, whereas the existing shows no cellar. So they're going to dig a cellar underneath that little building? Seems extreme. So anyway, are they doing that?
It's not clear whether that was existing and then just the
Left it
plan
off?
never indicated it.
But it doesn't show it even on the existing
Right, the
drawings.
building doesn't look like consisting a cellar.
Yeah.
It's a major structural undertaking.
Right, that's the part that I don't understand. Why would you go to the expense of putting a cellar underneath a little 1-story building when you have that rear yard, or whatever that is, that side yard thing, to extend into, but then you don't have a basketball court? Or maybe you do because it's at the cellar level, so you could roof over it and put the basketball court on top of that, which, why not? Maybe more money, but still, not more money than digging a cellar underneath an existing building, I don't think. Anyway. Anybody else? No? No, okay.
Appeals calendar, continued hearing items, item number 11, 235-15A and 259-15A, 8 Cornell Lane, it's a German request.
Yeah.
New cases, item number 12, 2016, 4268 and 4261A, 24045 Depute Avenue, Queens.
Okay, as a new case, service. We have proof of service of the application and proof of notice of hearing to officials, but we don't have a CB, Community Board recommendation. We do have DEP and DOT sign off, and the fire department had one condition, which was that they need to provide, the applicant has to provide a new placard at the intersection of Depew Street and on the building to basically identify the address of the building. I'd like to know, because this is GCL waivers, what? Sorry?
When I called the community board, they said they weren't commenting on these GCL cases.
But they
I don't have anything
gave
in
us,
writing from
they
them.
gave us a,
The community.
oh, no, the community board said, okay, no, so they're
I
waiving?
contacted them last week, yeah.
Okay, so maybe wait.
The week before, or whatever.
Okay, and then also because of these GCL waivers that we're involving the borough presidents when they ask to be involved, I'd like to just reach out to the Queens BP, make
Okay.
sure that she's okay with it. And then the BSA, and I just want to make a note because this is near the Long Island Railroad tracks, and there's statements in the statement of facts that says, not to worry, it's not that close to the tracks. It's
Well,
more
we
than-
raised that as an issue.
What, sorry?
I think we raised that as an issue.
We raised it, but what I want to say is, whatever the situation is, the Board of Standards doesn't make any representation about whether it's far enough away from the railroad tracks. So we should have a note that DOB has
Okay.
to verify whatever the situation is, because normally, being that close to MTA tracks, MTA would be all over this. So I don't know what Long Island Railroad thinks.
You want to add something?
No, just that
Okay.
I agree with the fire department in this case, because if you don't have your GPS on, you will zoom right past it.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
Yeah, 'cause
And
it's in
even
the back.
if when you go down the hill to that parking area, I'm assuming fire department has looked into the possibility of the turnaround and there is adequate turnaround space, because there were vehicles parked in that turnaround area, so,
Well, are they supposed to be parking in the turnaround area? That's the question.
well, that's a question, should there be, because there were, and that would prevent, I think, a truck to turn around. So those are just some questions I would like FDNY to respond and clarify if those were reviewed.
Okay.
It was not an easy drive down.
Okay, it wasn't an easy drive. No. Okay.
It's very narrow.
Okay.
Zoning calendar decision items, item number 13, 30-14BZ, 6101 16th Avenue, Brooklyn.
Oh. What happened to Dayhill?
What happened?
It's.
Oh, this was named a decision
This is a
because it was
decision.
closed, actually,
They
with
will
deferred
continue.
decisions, so they moved it
Oh.
in an amended calendar.
Oh, I didn't get that one. I'm sorry. So what are we doing, 16th Avenue, which I believe they requested an adjournment on?
Still awaiting DEP.
Yeah, and so
So is this a deferred
DEP,
decision?
yeah, because the air quality is still is again under review.
Item number 14, 2017, 29BZ, 2570 Flatbush Avenue, Brooklyn.
Oops, sorry, now I'm completely out of 2017, what?
2017-29BZ, 2570 Flatbush Avenue, Brooklyn. They had to do some plan changes, remember from last
Yeah,
hearing?
no, but I'm totally out of order now
Oh, I'm
because of
sorry.
so now I have to find it by doing searches, Flatbush. Hold on a second. What the hell happened?
This is the Raymore and Flanagan from last week that we
Oh.
just
It's probably
put on
not
for
in there.
decision.
That's what happened. Okay, so I need someone else to take over.
They submitted it.
So at the last hearing.
I must
we
not
had-
have the most up-to-date calendar. I usually,
That came in Friday.
that's what happened, I didn't see it. Okay.
So at the last hearing, we had raised some concerns about addressing the perimeter detailing, especially with landscaping and buffering the parking lot. The applicant is, at the hearing, they had presented planting along
The rear lot.
the rear lot line, which is the Hendrickson Street. We wanted additional treatment to be made along Avenue V. The applicant has proposed a 4-foot wide, has proposed a low wall with an ornamental black iron railing fence along Avenue
Which
V.
is what we asked,
Which is what
right.
we asked. And then in the corner of Avenue V and Hendrickson, where a plant was being proposed, we also wanted some additional information how the ground would be treated. They're proposing juniper ground cover, and I think it addresses all the concerns that we have raised. And they have revised the arrow indicating both exit and entry on Avenue V and Flatbush.
And they detailed what's going to be planted on that rear street, the rear 4-foot wide planting strip is 129 boxwoods at 2-foot spacing.
Great, okay, so totally responsive, so it's okay. But we closed that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay. All right, great, thank you.
Okay, continued hearing items, item number 15 and 16, Together, Nicole? Yes.
Yeah.
5602BZ, 317 Day Hill Road, Brooklyn, and item number 161-96BZ, 600 McDonald Avenue, Brooklyn. These are compliance hearings cases.
They certainly are. Okay, a lot of material was submitted on June 30th following our May 9th hearing, some of which was brought to the prior hearing and was now formally submitted. We have a series of checklist forms that were signed but not sealed by someone at Pinner Architecture. I wonder, I don't think they are, but I'm wondering if these are official DOB or FDNY forms that are supposed to be related to inspecting the site prior to events when you have a temporary public assembly permit. The checklist forms purport perhaps to indicate, but it's not clear, that site inspections took place prior to events on certain dates as required by the now long expired temporary public assembly permit. If they don't state anywhere that there was an inspection, we actually don't have any idea what they really are supposed to be doing. They're called a checklist. The form, they're called a pre-event checklist. The architect provided a cover letter which also does not describe the reports as pertaining to inspections. It just refers to a checklist, and the checklist refers to a series of, we got two different submissions of these checklists. So one dated from mid-May up until mid-June, with, I'm not sure whether all the dates are covered that where there were events. There's no way for us to really know that. And so I'd like to know whether there were no events on the dates during the week that there could have been events, and also what's happened since mid-June. Also, they also submitted a separate package, more of those event checklists that go back to September 2016. I find those confusing just based on what happened at our last compliance hearing, where the architect admitted that he had not inspected the site prior to each event and seemed to be unaware that that was a requirement of the TPA. I remember quite distinctly that the commissioners were reading the TPA while the hearing was going on, saying, and then asked whether the architect had performed according to the terms, and he seemed to be surprised, like, where does it say I have to do that? So I don't really understand how we have these checklists going back to September as a result.
Especially since the first checklist we got started up May 14th, which
Right.
led me to believe that they were like, oops, now we
Yeah.
got to start doing it. And so
Right.
they created a record going forward.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I was doubtful about there being a record that was accurate going
Right.
backwards.
And it's not because, this is newly suspicious behavior. We've been having a lot of trouble with this applicant and their, let's say, willingness to be forthcoming with information that's accurate or truthful. So it's, so what I would like to say is any future reports that are filed for all of these future events that seem to be booked no matter what we say here, it needs to be signed and sealed by the TPA's applicant of record, which at the moment is Mr. Pinner. And they need to say that on X date and at X time, the undersigned inspected the premises and found the following, and whatever the following is. Because they're just stamped with like the office's block stamp. It's not the architect making any kind of representation that goes to his license, and it's serious stuff. I wanted to go to his license. They also submitted a letter from the sprinkler company saying the system is operational and that the company is, quote, currently performing inspections, though it's unclear in what capacity or frequency because it doesn't say. It refers only to the system at 317 Day Hill. I'd like to know where the review of the 600 McDonald system is. Also, in terms of the TPA permit, it seems to be focusing on 317 Day Hill, which is what it's for, right? But we've seen in the myriad photos and videos that happy couples so proudly post onto every imaginable website that a lot of the partying goes on in 600 McDonald. That's where you arrive, that's where all the initial hugging and kissing goes on, where the photographs are taken. That's a place of public assembly as well, and needs to have a permit, and needs to meet fire codes. There's also a letter from the Associated Security Group stating that the fire alarm system is in working order. And again, it refers only to the system at 317 Day Hill. There needs to be a system at 600 McDonald and also be inspected. They also submitted a letter from a protective services company with a list showing 4 fire guards in attendance on the listed dates of the events, going back to September, early September. Although we didn't receive a list for the June events. I'd like to know if there's also a requirement for fire guards in 600 McDonald for similar reasons. 600 McDonald is already, the first floor is a cellar. So the Day Hill cellar is actually at a sub-cellar grade because you go down a flight of stairs, it's even deeper than the McDonald cellar. So, and we've recently learned on some other applications that when you have cellar assembly space, you're supposed to have those areas of refuge, those safe areas. I'd like to know how in the world they're dealing with the safe area where there's no place to go except into a tight staircase that takes you up to a cellar to get out, unless you're going to the street from Day Hill. And then the other thing is, since they submitted floor plans showing the incredibly long route that refrigerated trash has to travel to get from the kitchen through the entire school, dripping and yucking, you have to imagine, to the container in the side yard. That just surprises me. And obviously because the building wasn't designed to do this, so it's sort of ill-equipped to handle this activity here. And also, since 317 Day Hill actually acts in tandem with 600 McDonald at the cellar and first floor levels, the plans should show both buildings connected and also locations of the trash storage and bus parking areas all on one plan, since all are relevant to the operation of the buildings. So now they have to travel in tandem. And they also need to be, so we have BSA approved plans that don't look like the conditions. So those plans need to be amended to reflect the actual conditions. We have also a 1-year lease now, beginning June 1st, to accommodate 50 parking spots from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. at 3611 14th Avenue for up to 150 nights over the year. The C of O for that location shows, I think, a pre-61, that pre-61 parking is permitted, so it's a legal site. I'm not sure that 50 parking spots is enough for this. There is a provision that allows them to have more, but they have to pay per additional spot. But it's also only a 1-year lease, and obviously if this becomes a permanent condition, it can't be a non-permanent lease. And then relevant to the owner's legalization efforts is included a city planning interdivisional meeting record of May 18th for a meeting that took place on April 26th. So I'd like to know what the current status is, because that was a while ago, in responding to city planning's request, because they said, I think they said a draft of the application should be now submitted. And so Mr. Rothkrew, who's handling that aspect of the material, of the work, needs to attend the hearing tomorrow. Other comments?
No, I'm kind of concerned that, and I'm assuming the building is taking the necessary care of ensuring that the building remains hygienic and safe, and the health and safety of the school children is paramount, especially with regards to trash being hauled over 650 feet, which is almost like the length of a city block. So I just want to make sure that they have taken that into consideration
residents
Right,
in
but
unrefrigerated.
But they have the center space with a pretty big kitchen space. I think
Yeah.
they should figure out a way to provide a storage space in that area. And when the trash pickup happens, pick it up and do it right off the McDonald in front of the building,
Mm-hmm.
not from the residential side, but on the school side, and not where you have to traverse 650 feet through the school ground
Yeah.
to get to it, and then have to clean it up and other things. It just logistically, I think it's much easier to do that.
Well, and another way they might handle it is actually spend a little money, since they're making money out of this, which is to add to, maybe they traverse only the event space on 600 McDonald, and then there's an elevator that brings it up to the street level, and then they have a recess at the street level where the trash can be stored. You know, they could actually have the refrigerated storage on that floor instead. I mean, if they're running a catering facility, they need to be running a catering facility. It's not kind of sort of a catering facility, right? And so they should be handling it in a way that doesn't impose filth, frankly, on lots of teeny kids. These are teeny kids in there. So,
And that is the primary goal and objective of this facility, and that should be
right.
considered, and I think that is being overlooked.
Yeah.
I'm still not sure.
Because they have that northern yard area, which right now is like one of the, I think it's the women's entrance.
Yes,
to the-
that's
To
another-
the catering
Right.
facility, but that's an option to
Yes.
somehow carve that up and put garbage storage only just prior to pickup.
Right.
In a portion of that area.
And not to mention, the garbage is going to go through the play area to that trash area.
Right, it doesn't
No,
belong
no,
there
right,
either.
right, yeah. No, so that northern
Yeah.
section would be
I
a good
agree.
spot, and
Yes,
they would be
that's good.
motivated to keep it clean because it will be it's
The front
also the
of the-
catering
Yes.
women's entrance. So
Right.
that would motivate them to
Yeah,
keep that
yeah.
nice and hygienic and
Right.
clean.
Right, and the idea of having that refrigerated trash storage in the play area is kind of outrageous, because you're imposing really what ultimately is unhealthy on little kids who we know in the summer are in a
Or
little swimming
swimming,
pool.
yeah.
Yeah, so,
And may even discourage them from using that as a play area, which is not what the
right,
goal
because it smells so bad or whatever, right?
And we have heard it in another case, which we are going to hear later on, where they did not want even bus parking in the play area or bus drop-off in the play area because that is not something that is conducive to the activity of play area. If that's the case, I would hold a trash receptacle in a near a play area and carrying it through that in the same category. And I think a better solution has to be identified. I still am not sure how the parking lease is going to work, especially, as you said, it's a one-year lease. It's from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. What happens after that? And this catering facility is not. We already have the calendar for 2018, and there might be more. So we have to assume that this is a permanent function, and there has to be a much more permanent solution than a one-year lease.
That addresses the crowds, because it's only 50 spaces.
And is this a valet parking, or is the people, those who are attending the events will be notified and they will go and park? Because that may not encourage them to go and park
Right.
there. They may just start looking for a parking space
Would have to
on the
be
side.
valet.
It has to be a valet to make that functional.
Right. Commissioner Otley Brown, you have more?
No, no additional.
Okay, thank you.
I
Oh, yeah.
want to add one more thing. I was looking at the plans that were approved for the Day Hill and the current plan. I do notice that there has been change in the number of classrooms that were originally requested than currently. There are fewer classrooms now than were originally approved. Of course, the room sizes are more or less same. There are more computer rooms than that were proposed. But again, I just want to make sure that the Day Hill School program that was envisioned has not been compromised because of this program. And I don't think the documents has quite adequately answered that.
And the drawings have to be revised to reflect the actual existing conditions.
They have
Yeah.
submitted the drawings reflecting the existing condition, which shows that there are 19 classrooms as opposed to 25 that we have approved. And these adjustments were made by DOB, and DOB accepted them as they were considered the scope. But I think programmatically, we need to make sure, because we do look at the number of classrooms and other as a requirement, so I just want to make sure that this is consistent.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that we perhaps should have an internal conversation with council about how to handle the changes to the plans that have been discovered. Because, as you say, DOB did accept them, so there's that. But this is the type of thing that, we would typically either do by letter or perhaps an amendment if we felt that it rose to that. And I think we
Right.
need to have a conversation
Right.
internally.
And I would say the classrooms that have been converted into computer rooms, I mean, maybe the programmatic has changed.
That-
Just
that-
something,
yeah,
a
that's the type
clarification
yeah.
That would be
Yeah.
helpful as to how it changed and
Right.
how the current program is completed.
And having
so
that,
then is
a
not
record
being
of that.
jeopardized by the other program.
Either in a letter or something
Yeah,
like that.
but the reality is we have an amendment about classroom changes, but we also have something much more significant about a use that's not a
Right,
permitted
right.
use in the building, which we never would have permitted if asked for a school in a residence district, right?
Yeah, I don't want to suggest we could legalize that.
Right, not legalizable by us. Okay.
Item number 17, 214-14A and 215-14BZ, 103rd Street and Alstein Avenue, Queens. Sorry.
Okay, sorry, just a second. Palestine. Oh, because 16th we did, okay, now I got it. Yeah, now I'm a little bit with the program, okay. All right, sorry, just a little bit, okay. So with respect to the A finding, the site has 3 structures on it, part of which enjoyed the benefits of non-complying side and front yards and a non-conforming commercial use. I'd like to know, doesn't that make this site better off than its equivalent triangles in the area? Because it did have both non-complying and non-conforming conditions that it could have taken advantage of. In particular, because the as-of-right would enjoy the predominantly built-up floor area if the applicant's analysis is correct, but except for that illegally constructed front yard. So they could have, had they not built that into the front yard, they could have enjoyed more floor area. So the front yards sort of created their own hardship by, front yard incursion created more hardship by reducing the floor area. And I know no as-of-right version without the incursion was prepared. The engineering report indicates that 20 to 25% of the 2 corner buildings are completed, and that foundation and framing only can be reutilized. But that the exterior and interior sheathing materials have to be replaced, which wouldn't surprise me because it's been open to the elements for a very long time. So this goes to the question of why the non-complying front yard can't be cut back to render the project as of right, especially since the proposed now shows that non-complying front yard imposing stair move to the interior, which does require some significant reframing around that area, right? And further, I'm wondering, how can you rely on existing development within the street bed for the uniqueness argument if the buildings are to be demolished? So you really can't argue about that. So I frankly still having trouble getting past the A. I also don't see how the predominantly built-up regulations apply here if the buildings that existed on the site prior to their demolition or in the location of buildings 3 and 4 included a 2.5-story residential detached or semi-detached structure, because that's specifically what it's not allowed to have in order to be a predominantly built-up area. And they didn't perform the calculations. They said we don't need to perform the calculations, but in fact they do need to. With respect to the modifications to the project, the proposed went down by a little bit from 1.45 to 1.41 FAR. And as I said, the staircase was removed from building 2 at the exterior, so it doesn't impose as much on the front yard. They provided sort of a maneuverability diagram with respect to the parking, but didn't change anything about the buildings. I still don't understand how the second car gets out if the front car is parked there. It requires removal of 2 cars for the rear car to get out. They also didn't modify the ground floor, building number 4, floor plan to make that unit 1B viable. They really need to show a furnishing diagram to show where a bed would go, unless you buy a triangular built-in bed. And also, they show not all the street trees being provided. I don't know why that would be. There seems to be room for all the street trees. We also asked for a better streetscape study that tells the actual story about the project, since you have 2 existing buildings to remain on the site already, so you could easily sketch in the additional one on each frontage to be more representative of the impact, or do, as we suggested at the last hearing, the overlay perspective that Ryan has developed, which is quite simple, and we're seeing a lot of success with that. Neither of those approaches were done. Instead, they did that pasted thing again. The proposed 3-story, also the heights that are provided on the streetscape actually don't make sense in light of reality. The proposed is a 3-story building, but it's indicated to be equal to or only slightly taller than a 2-story building. I just don't understand how that could be. The measurements should be off average curve, and the height of the proposed is actually 33 foot 5 inches to the roof, to the top of the roof, and not 29 foot 9. They're measuring to the spring, not to the roof. And also, we asked at the last hearing to bring the architect to this hearing, so please bring the architect.
I had just questioned more with regards to the street improvement, the landscaping that is being proposed. There is in the plan that indicates there is a voluntary grass area along the Alston Street. Who maintains this, and why is it not on the property, and why is it on the city's street? If that's not a requirement on the property, then move it in onto the property side, within the property, and then maintain it. The layout of the ground floor on building 4, I think it has been revised, but I'm not sure if it is because to make it ADA compliant, diagrammatically doesn't seem to be. I need that verification from the architect. That's kind of my additional comments.
Okay. So the ground floor of that one unit with the triangular living room, it was modified a little bit to try to make that room a little more viable. So they moved the entrance of the door, basically. So maybe it also allows for a better turnaround or something, but I still didn't find a place to put a bed.
A twin-size bed maybe, on the wall adjacent to the garage.
Nice.
For the monk's lifestyle.
Right. So we had talked about maybe this should be a duplex unit or something like that, and they ignored that, so. Okay.
I had raised a number of financial comments in the previous hearing, and I just want to say, because this is a different financial analyst, it would be very helpful if upon giving me answers to previously made comments, if they could provide some kind of a summary or cover letter at the beginning that lets me know all of the different assumptions that would be changing, because what ends up happening is I end up having to hold 2 reports open and go back and forth. So, one of my questions had to do with parking cost and parking income, because it seemed as if the cost was the same for the spots, whether or not they were indoors or outdoors. They did make a correction to that, and now the outdoor spots will cost $3,000 a piece, and the indoor spots seem to cost about $7,500 a square piece, a piece for each spot. However, that was just me trying to do the math and figure it out, as I said, because there's no summary as to what was changed. The parking income is actually still only for the indoor spaces in the proposed proposed and not for the as-of-right or the proposed outdoor spaces, which I kind of find hard to believe in this area because parking is at a premium in this area. You could see there's cars on the sidewalks the whole way through. So I think that any property owner would be charging for the outdoor spots. So I think they need to make a revision to that. They did, one of my comments previously had to do with the fact that the two-bedroom apartments didn't have any comparables that set their rentals, and what the analyst was doing was basically making the assumption that one-bedroom apartments and two-bedroom apartments would rent for about the same price per square foot, but didn't have any backup. They did provide backup. They provided a list of two-bedroom apartments that were either leased or about to be leased. And it showed that there really was very little difference in the price per square foot for either one bedrooms or two bedrooms, so I accept that assumption. The cost of the project, strangely enough, went up for both scenarios, and in the first hearing, I had made a comment about the hardship costs, because they had included a hardship cost in the as-of-right, which was a $72,000 cost for the demolition, which I told them to take out because this was a legalization, so therefore you can't include demolition costs. So I expected that the cost of construction would go down, but instead it went up, and I'm not quite sure why. So it'd be helpful if the analyst could come and explain that. I'm not sure that any corrections to that would make a difference overall in the bottom line of the financials. So, but it would be nice to just have those loose ends tied up.
Okay. And in terms of the A, any comments about the A findings?
Oh, no, I'm in agreement with you on the A, and then, of course, because of that, it also kicks off D.
Okay. Okay. All right, thank you. Oops. You okay? Pen.
Do it again. Jesus, be to it, man. Okay, I'll talk to Margaret. Okay. 3218. 3218, right? Okay, bye. Sorry, Marlene needs to speak to you.
Take a break?
Yeah, 5-minute break. I know why it's about.
Yeah. We're gonna take a 5-minute break? Sorry. Back on record? So we finished with the Alice, with the other one?
Yes.
Okay. Item number 18234 at 15 BZ, 1223 67th Street, Brooklyn.
Okay. So the revised statement of facts is now pursuing a variance application to try to legalize the front yard and perimeter wall heights that go beyond the authority of the 73622 special permit. Meanwhile, there were also many open questions at the last hearing with respect to the 73622 application that I don't think were addressed because I think there was focus now placed then on the variance application. Most of these questions had to do with verifying that the house as built actually complied with the R5 regulations. And those questions now go very specifically to whether there might have been, in terms of the argument, a legitimate reliance in the variance application, detrimental reliance. In particular, as discussed at the last hearing, the approved plans state that the front yard condition is an existing non-compliance. That indicates that the enlargement at the front that would increase the degree of non-compliance would not have been permitted under the R5 regulations. That's also true of the side yards, where it's stated that they are existing non-compliances. So unless I'm misreading the text about when you're allowed to vertically enlarge a house, those vertical enlargements would have increased the degree of noncompliance, unlike what is stated on the drawings. There are also no wire diagrams showing compliance with height and setback regulations under either the R5 or the current zoning. I think that's R41. In reviewing the originally approved plans, I'm concerned about the detail that seems to show, or not seems to show, that shows removal of all of the existing joists. So it's possible that only one wall is left standing during the construction process. That exceeds our minimum standard for removal of existing materials under 73-622. So that goes to the threshold of the special permit. With respect to the detrimental reliance question, the statement of facts briefed only Panelides, which relied on a zoning interpretation that was received from the highest level DOB official. And then the interpretation shifted. So it's a different thing than a clear reading of the zoning resolution. It was DOB having, changing its mind about something, right? There's also, though, Parkview, which determined that the Department of Buildings is not stopped from correcting its errors. And there have also been later cases that took, let's say, referred to or modified Panelides. These all need to be briefed to make a case for this. But before you do that, you need to actually establish that reliance was based on complying plans. And I don't know yet whether it was.
And I had an issue with the good faith reliance for similar reasons to what you stated. This was not a question of interpretation. To me, this was a situation where the Department of Buildings erred. They made a mistake. They were not up on the latest zoning change. The zoning change is pretty public. So one could say that maybe not the individual homeowner, but certainly the professional in charge of the alteration should have known about this very public zoning change. And so therefore, for me, the remedy is not necessarily us granting a good faith reliance. The remedy should be a civil remedy pursued privately, to me, between the owner and the professional who is in charge.
And we worked on a case that was very similar to that, where the architect messed up on so many levels, and a variance application here was extremely unsuccessful because the architect messed up on so many levels, and the DOB didn't find all of the mistakes. In fact, didn't find maybe any of them because I think it was professionally certified in that case, but I'm not sure. But still, it ended up being a civil question, not a reliance question. So
I think I'm new to this from that point of view. I have not had a case that reviewed it that way, but the way I looked at it was, there were two outstanding issues at the last hearing that revolved around the non-compliancy with front yard and the perimeter wall. And to address that, the applicant submitted the variance application based on good faith. And as I look at the facts that has been presented in terms of DOB's role and responsibility, it is the DOB issued a permit well after the rezoning was adopted. There were subsequent renewals, there were amendments, there were also PAAs. So all of these happened well past the rezoning was adopted, and DOB still did not do its due diligence of verifying whether the rezoning, what was the zoning district. And should the architect have notified? Yes, the architect should have notified the change happened. Maybe the architect wasn't that well versed, but the DOB, that is DOB's duty to ensure that it is complying with the underlying zoning. And the fact that DOB accepted what was submitted and proceeded to issue all of the approvals along the way seems like a negligence on their part, which the applicant should not be penalized on. They did everything as per the DOB approved, and the construction was completed as per the DOB approval. Now, DOB probably allowed the enlargement, vertical enlargement along the front yard up to 3 stories, assuming that's an as of right based on sections 54.313 how DOB would have allowed that extension out over the stairway, because that was open to sky, and allowing that to extend all the way to second and third. Again, that was DOB's I'm breaking up the front facade into two. There's the one that is already, you have an existing one-story building that you can extrude up under the section 54313. But the remaining section of the front facade, which is over the stairway, that was extended out. That DOB should not have allowed, but DOB did proceed to allow that. And how it did, don't know, we will never know. But I do think there is a good faith reliance on this, and I think they meet the A on that one and addresses that issue. With regards to the neighborhood character, each time I look at this block, I'm just amazed how this block got rezoned to an R41 district. There's not as, pretty much every building, there is no uniformity in this block. The building heights vary. There are 5-story buildings, there are 4 stories, there are 3-story buildings. And then there are the buildings that we have seen from 1910 that are raised on a much higher ground, where the base plane, as the DOB had approved for this building, is at a much higher elevation than the curb level. And in terms of what is permitted in an R41 district as a height limit, most of the buildings exceed that. In terms of the FAR, pretty much over 80% of the buildings exceed the FAR requirement. So again, I'm a little flummoxed as to how DCP would have allowed that particular pocket to be rezoned to an R41, given that it more than, when we were doing rezonings, we were told no more than 25% can be in non-compliance, and this is just the reverse. So I think in terms of neighborhood character, what this building stands as, given the vast building typology that's there, I don't have an issue with in terms of the neighborhood character. I would support this application.
So, but I do want to say that we are in part bound by court decisions who have given us direction about what constitutes detrimental reliance. So in the interests of consistency of board practice, I hope that you'll read those cases and work with counsel. Because the courts have viewed quite narrowly the subject of detrimental reliance, and I'm not saying it doesn't apply in this case. I don't know the answer yet, because we still need more information. But the issue is that the Department of Buildings makes mistakes a lot, and so the idea of protecting every single property owner where DOB made a mistake, sort of, and in Parkview, which is the most famous and powerful of all the cases, in Parkview, that was the story of a very, very tall apartment building being built on 94th Street or something, and 3rd Avenue, where the building was overbuilt pursuant to what was misunderstood to be the zoning map at the time, but it actually wasn't the correct zoning map. And Department of Buildings instructed the owner to remove several floors of the building, and the court held that ultimately, when it went through the process, that Department of Buildings is not a stop from correcting its mistakes. So where it was clearly the zoning, it had the right to correct the mistakes. And so the difference with Panelides was, it was a question about a greenhouse addition, where Panelides had constructed a greenhouse pursuant to reconsiderations that he got all the way up the chain to the highest level of DOB to determine whether a greenhouse could have a staircase in it, as opposed to just plants. And then the neighbor challenged the greenhouse, and that went also all the way up, I think, to the Court of Appeals, right? And they determined that Panelides had detrimentally relied because you can't go any higher than the highest, and they clarified the specific question, and the specific question shifted. DOB changed its mind once challenged. So it's really a different set of circumstances between Parkview and Panelides. And then, what's the case that was decided not too long ago?
Woods versus
Jane
Trinity.
Estates,
Oh,
Jane Estates.
Is
So,
it Woods versus Trinity?
no, Jane's very old. Say? Maybe, I don't know, I can't remember the name. But anyway, but council will brief you with this, but also the applicant really needs to look at all of those cases and discuss in light of all of those cases, how this case fits within the ones that are supportive and how you distinguish the ones that aren't supportive, because there are ones that are not supportive. Okay? Okay.
Item number 19, 2016-4131BZ, 901 Quentin Road, Brooklyn.
Okay. The soil boring report was submitted to support an argument for a shallow cellar. I'm sorry to say that I can read a soil boring report, but I can't do too much with it. So without our engineer, we can't really review this soil boring report unless we reach out to another agency with an engineer. So we'll have to address that issue shortly. Hopefully, we will have our new engineer in short time. The site plan was modified to show planting along the side lot lines, street trees all the way around, and bicycle parking for 43 bikes. We were told in one of these prior hearings that there are 100 students who use to bike, so 43 spaces is not nearly enough. So why can't you add more bike racks, for instance, in that side yard? Or they also make these double height bike racks. So they're like double-decker bike racks that would probably cover all 100 bikes. Then with respect to the waivers of the unpermitted obstructions, the aggregate street wall with calculations were provided, and as we requested, and the aggregate width is 673 square feet, where the maximum allowable is 213 square feet. But I'm wondering, since the bulkhead at the side yard is not for the elevator overrun, and the building on the 10th Street side is not treated symmetrically, then why does that bulkhead that's not for the elevator override need to be so tall? It just needs to be tall enough for the staircase to arrive at the roof. And why can't the height of the bulkhead on the Quentin Street side be reduced to create a designed facade that still exceeds the height generally only where needed for the elevator overrun, thereby we're reducing the scope of the waiver. So it would make the building on that frontage look shorter, and you could still get a designed facade. I understand why the architect's running it across that side, but on the other side it's not symmetrical, so it's not really that carefully handled in terms of that level. With respect to the way other requested waivers, I don't see mention of some of these on the drawings compared to the list of objections in the statement of facts, which I know I mentioned at the last hearing. There needs to be a zoning calculation page as part of the drawing set, and the areas of noncompliance is shown on the drawing. So when I go through the list of requested waivers, I don't see on the drawings where the waiver is implicated, and they need to make that clear. We also asked for zoning calculations for the as-of-right so that we could compare proposed to the proposed, and also we requested the existing floor plans. And I believe for the as-of-right studies that responded to our questions, they responded to our questions about potential drop-off areas. We also asked for more information on the proposal's context within neighborhood character, because it's taller even than it's the other school, and it's of course much taller than the houses on the street, and we didn't get that. I still don't see disabled access, which we talked about a lot, from the public assembly area at the first floor to the outdoor recreation area. So the only way to get there is the students have to go to the street and walk around the block to get there, which makes no sense in terms of children's safety or in how teachers are going to really handle themselves.
I think they have a lift kind of drawn on there now.
I don't see where it
It's not labeled.
goes.
It's not labeled.
So, I think the way
But I
the
think
plan
that's
reads
what-
right now, one enters from the corner of Clinton, and then one has to traverse all the way through the assembly area and go to the other stairwell in the rear, and there is a lift that brings one
Oh, I
to
didn't
the
see
play
that.
area, which I'm not sure why that location was picked and why not the
At the front,
staircase
at the
right by there,
lobby.
because they're of the same width, and I think one should be able to accommodate that
Right.
lift there.
Right.
Agreed, but yeah, I think.
So when you
it's
say
wrong.
lift,
There's
you
no
mean a
note.
stair chair?
Yes,
like-
a stair
yeah.
chair.
yes.
Sorry, yes, a stair chair.
Okay.
There's no note though.
There's
But
no note,
it's
so-
wrong.
How do you know that's a lift then, if there's no note
Well,
that says
the
lift?
memo also talked about,
Memo reference
Oh,
to
it does, okay, I didn't
so
see it.
it's not really clear.
Yeah, okay, so we need to understand that better. Also, I'm also confused again about who uses this new first floor assembly area, and that's just because the applicant is not coordinating internally. The statement of fact says it's both for students of all ages, and it also says it's only for the elementary schools, so it's one or the other, not both. The plans show elementary school use, which is probably what it is, because that's what they said at the hearing, but then statement of fact says two things at the same time. It's also no longer clear which age group will use the rec area at the first floor, because that's no longer explained in the statement of facts. The floor plans aren't showing occupancy capacity in basically any of the rooms. The assembly areas, gym, lunchroom, classrooms, it needs to do that. We had asked that the proposal also look to increase the side yard width along the residential property line to at least 10 feet, similar to the condition at the existing building. I'm not, the existing school building, and I'm not seeing why that wouldn't be possible, given that, according to the programmatic needs analysis, it says they are looking at a 500 square foot target for each classroom, and the classrooms are bigger than 500 square feet, they're like 520 or something. So you're only trying to get 2 feet, so it's just a little bit of a sliver. And there's also a 60-foot long target for the gym, which is much longer than that. And I think by increasing it to what it's supposed to be, a 10-foot side yard, you're significantly improving the relationship between this very tall structure and the adjacent residential building. And it's similar to what's already there at the existing school. We also had talked about the fact that the elementary school was going to increase in population there, and so that was going to likely have an effect on drop-offs, buses, everything, and that wasn't discussed at all. They had made an assumption at the last hearing and in some of the materials that the 5 buses that currently work there would only increase to 7, but that's not borne out at all by this ridership chart that they provided that shows there are currently 11 buses that will increase to 13, because those 13 buses will drop children off at both schools. It's picking up boys and girls, and it takes the boys to this school, the girls to that school. So you actually have 13 buses passing by. So actually, you're coordinating for 13 buses, so let's see how that works. I also don't have a handle still on the current student population and the projected 2021 population. The numbers are still all over the place.
Not only that, but the numbers and the projected plan and the number of proposed classrooms, none of it makes sense. Because they talk about how they currently they want to have 3 classes per grade, which would equal 39 classrooms. But then in another statement, they say their goal is to have 4 classrooms per grade. And so then that would definitely exceed the 39 classrooms. And they sort of talk about it like they're going to start phasing in the lower grades with the 4th classroom, which means before this building is even built, it's obsolete for its uses. So I found it very confusing, and I had raised that question before also about who is coming and from where they're coming. And they tried to answer that by talking about the consolidated the 4 different campuses and how they're pulling the youngest boys from the girls' campus to bring them to this site, but still the numbers don't seem to make sense to me between the 770 and the 1,072 and the 1,196
And the 1288.
and the 970.
And the 894.
Yes, it's still just as confusing. I don't understand why they just can't simply say there are these many young people here today. If we did nothing but move those young people from the other school into this, we would have this. And then when this building is finished, we should have capacity for this. And someday in the future, when we get another variance, because that's the only way they could have 4 classes per grade, we will then have this.
Right, if they get another.
Right, when and if they get another variance.
Right. Right, and the other reason that we're so confused is because the statement of facts says one thing, and then you read the programmatic needs analysis, and it's completely unrelated to the statement of facts. So so we take notes from the statement of facts, and then we go and we read the programmatic needs, and then we go and we're like, oh, it's not it said 1,072 before, now it's 1,288. Which is it?
Not to mention that the numbers that we were told in the last hearing also don't add up.
Right.
So,
Well,
Well, we
at the
were told,
last
yeah.
hearing, we said, we don't know what the numbers are.
Well, we were
So
told-
I thought it's pretty clear, therefore, that you should go back and clarify, and read everything clearly, and find out what the numbers are. And if you don't know, ask, right? Seems obvious. Please.
So in addition to the programmatic need statement, which all of us are figuring out which number is the right number, and I'll add to my confusion also, I have the same concerns. The landscaping plan, I think at the last hearing, we had said that we wanted some kind of landscaping detail that specifically also addresses noise attenuation through some fencing, and I'm not sure if that has been responded to. The plan's details do not indicate that. As per the survey, it does indicate there are existing hedges along Quentin Road and East 10th Street, which the proposed plan doesn't seem to include. I'm assuming that's just an oversight in the plan, and those hedges along Quentin and East 10th Street are going to remain, and the drawing should reflect that. Those are just my additions.
Okay, and I just
And
want
I do have a concern about the bus drop-off and pick-up, and the statement is still not clear as to how that is being addressed, given that we have the girls and the boys, and how that traffic is being done. We have to keep in mind, there's a building that's right across the street that's also before us, which also has a parking garage entrance there, and that is a very busy street, so, the double parking does become an issue, and it is mostly as a result of the school buses and the drop-off and the pickup, though that's needs.
Okay.
I agree. They just basically make a summary statement that the faculty will continue to manage it, but they really need to give us details because that's part of the special permit findings too, is ensuring the safety of the students. So it really should be in detail addressed.
And then, this is a comment that you made at the last hearing, Commissioner Otley Brown made, with respect to the 7319 findings for the alternate sites. I know that, let's say intellectually, it's more convenient to have the school expanded on the same site, but we have specific findings for the 7319. You have to show backup for the idea that there are no available sites within the as of right district. They said within 400 feet. Well, that's not actually the test. So, there's ways to argue it, but you actually do have to say, we needed a building of this many square feet, we needed a site of this many square feet, we looked around in the catchment area for our school, and these were the sites we found, and this is what we determined based on looking at those sites. So, that must be in there to make the findings. Okay. We need, okay. And then also, there was also maybe this is what you were referring to, Commissioner Shanda, I see the faculty commute survey, but there's no backup data at all, and no explanation. It was just given to us. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do with it. Okay. That's it, everybody? Okay, good. Thanks.
Item number 20, 2016, 4166 BZ, 2579 East 17th Street, Brooklyn. Sorry.
Okay. They submitted a letter from a traffic engineer that states without support that the car wash adjacent to the site won't interfere with access to the parking garage, and that peak hours for car washes are generically on Saturday, when, in this case, there's an actual car wash for which the peak hours could actually be determined. And on her site visit, Commissioner Montanez observed long lines waiting to get into the car wash, which I presume was a site visit that did not occur on Saturday because that's not when she does her site visits. We started this application review in October of last year. The first parking study established a demand for 29 spaces, where 48 spaces were required for 8,393 gross square feet of ambulatory care and 7,325 gross square feet of use group 6 office, for a total of 15,718 gross square feet, where the chip generation rates follow the DOT standards of 127 trips per 1,000 gross square feet for ambulatory and 18 trips per 1,000 for offices. Although, as was observed, the study used zoning square feet instead of gross square feet, so actually the calculations that they provided were incorrect. The study also showed 25 to 36 on-street parking spaces were available. By the April hearing, so that was back in October, and subsequent, there was another hearing in October. By the April hearing, the 3,062 gross square feet on the fourth floor was converted from office to use group 4 non-commercial community facility with a parking requirement of 1 per 10 persons rated capacity, reducing the use group 4 ambulatory care to 8,393 gross square feet and office use to 4,262 gross square feet, requiring 39 spaces but providing only 20. A revised parking study based on a nearby medical facility claimed demand was now 17 spaces. The standard DOT utilization rates for medical offices of 127 trips per 1,000 was replaced by 29 trips per 1,000. We said at that hearing that no backup was provided to support the comparability of that medical office with this one, and when we suggested another medical office might be more comparable, the response was to say, oh, no way, we're not going to use that medical office because it's not going to be comparable for no reason given. And so by the June 20th hearing, the study showed a demand, so on June 20th, they came back showing now a demand for 19 spaces, having still not supported why that doctor's office was comparable. So rather than use the doctor's office that probably was more comparable, the consultant said they'll apply the trip generation rates from the EIS of the Domino Sugar. So today, we get a study claiming demand of only 16 spaces, so now it went down, citing to table 17-19 from the Domino EIS, which was not provided. The table wasn't provided. The study states that 8,393 gross square feet of ambulatory care, 4,263 gross square feet of office, and 3,063 gross square feet of community facility with 20 parking spaces is provided, and that the Domino utilization rate is 33.6 trips per 1,000 square feet. This data is used without showing the comparability of or making adjustments for the Domino site to this site. So there's no reason, I have nothing on which to base that Domino was the right data to use. So far, the DOT data in this case seems to be the right data, which is 127 per 1,000, because for whatever reason, this consultant never backs stuff up unless we ask. It's pretty unbelievable. And so I just have to say, I don't find any of these studies persuasive. From a demand of 29 spaces to 16 spaces with the consultants all over the place in 5 hearings or something, 4 or 5 hearings, grappling each time with their own conclusions without using researched or supported data. We're telling them how to do their research. They're supposed to be the consultants who tell us that we are the experts and we have figured out how to determine what the demand is. So, and I personally have had trouble with this application from the start. The building was built without coming to us first, assumed a waiver for this parking, and the building was built showing parking required as required for permitted uses. The community board is also opposed to this, and in situations that have to do with parking, that I really do think the community board knows its parking situation. So my feeling about it is that they have not made their case, and you know, maybe you guys think they have, so I just think we should just close this and vote on it, and that, you know, enough studies already. Anybody else?
I mean, I tend to agree with you that when you have so many studies and each one changing the number of spots that are assumed to be needed, it almost is like, now which one is the right one? You kind of lose sight of everything, and it's almost the report loses its credibility because there have been so many revisions. So I'm inclined to agree with you.
I think what bothers me is that the demand number has been reduced to accommodate what we have been asking for, which is how that parking, and that relates to how would that parking space with so many stackers operate. Just to make that function feasible, the demand number with each study that seems to suit the number has been addressed, has been utilized to identify the demand number. In reality, what is going to happen is probably going to be very, very different, and there is no way to verify that. And so I'm not convinced that the report that has, all the various reports that has been provided adequately shows the reality of what is going to happen and utilize. And by the way, I think on the last site visit, I did notice there were stackers in the back.
Yeah, their stackers are
In the
required
back.
for them to get their C of O, so they got a TCO or C of O based on that use, the uses
Right.
that were permitted. So they have a functioning building that you can rent for the stuff that's shown on the C of O, or the Schedule A, or whatever it is they got up
I think
there.
the way the number just fluctuated, it's troubling, and in reality, how that's going to play out, I do not think is reflected, and I agree.
Okay, thanks. So,
Move on. New cases on the zoning calendar, item number 1, 2016-4140BZ, 1959 University Avenue, the Bronx.
okay, with respect to service, we have proof of service of application to officials and proof of notice of hearing to officials and neighbors. Community Board 5 voted to approve. They also provided proof that the lot was held in single ownership since 1961, which is a reasonable thing to do in this circumstance, and maybe even required under the terms of the special permit, probably is. I actually don't have any issues with the proposed extension of the use into that extra 25 feet. These are very unfortunate sites that get beleaguered like that. However, they did show us photos of the site that's already been disturbed for site preparation and excavation, and it shows that that slope is actually kind of up against, almost like a retaining wall against other property, and they described how they're going to handle that rear 25 feet as being natural vegetation. But what it means now, it's not like there's lovely sort of overgrowth there, and then just going to leave that alone. Natural vegetation means to me weeds. So I think that they need to show that there's going to be a plan for some kind of ground cover that holds on to the hillside, which, by the way, you need, right? And probably, and I'm sure, because you look at the section, they're going to need retaining walls. So you have a retaining wall, and then you have a rocky landscaping thing with maybe one of those kind of juniper ground covers are specifically used on those kind of slopes to hold the soil in place. So I think they just need to show that. Anybody else?
I agree.
Okay.
Do you think that if we reached out to the applicant and asked them for a landscaping and retention, like a plan that showed
Yes,
sort of what they
yes, yeah,
proposed,
yeah.
I mean, that's something they might be able to produce
think so.
for tomorrow, and then we could sort
Yeah.
of move this along?
Yeah, yeah.
There's representatives here.
Yeah, there's representatives here, but we can...
Right, so, yes.
I'll reach out to them, but I think they said that because it's rocky, it's difficult to do.
No, so it was rocky before they removed the rocks. So actually, you see in the photograph that they started to cut back to prepare for excavation. And it's no question, it's a sloping site. You know, you have, the neighboring property is up here, and all the soil is like, and the rocks are falling down into the excavation. So when they build back, they're still going to have to deal with the retention of the neighboring property, which, by the way, I'm surprised I didn't see them doing something to retain the neighboring property, or they're going to start sliding. So there's retention work that has to be done, and then they'll backfill into that slope that brings it down to the place that they want to build to. Totally reasonable, but it's not that it's rocky anymore. And anyway, even if it is rocky, you still need to do something to hold the soil in place. And that's why some kind of ground cover that really like grabs on and won't be unsightly, because it can't just go to be weeds. Or say it shouldn't, let's say. Okay.
Item number 2, 2016-4271BZ, 201 Hampton Avenue, Brooklyn.
Okay, we have, again, a new application, so we have proof of service to officials and proof of notice of hearing to officials and neighbors. Community Board 15 recommends approval, and we also have one letter in support. With respect to Appendix G, there's a lot of construction here, so we need the floodplain administrator to look at whether this is a substantial improvement requiring abandonment of the cellar that's below the base flood elevation. So, you know, and they're going to need to do the calculations to present, to give us, that we can give to the flood administrator. In addition, I need to understand better how the existing building material is being retained sufficient to constitute an enlargement. The architect's letter says that perimeter walls will be retained until new walls are erected. That's known as a demolition. It's a way that you kind of work around the new building permit requirements. You kind of remove little pieces until you don't have anything left. So we need to understand how this is still going to be an enlargement. With respect to the area in the cellar that is part of the extension, no matter which way it goes in terms of whether this is a substantial improvement or not, that can't be usable space since it's below the base flood elevation, so you can't build new cellar space. It's got to be filled in. In general, though, I think this is an enormous house that's 4 stories high, 44 feet above curb level, and towers over its neighbors. The Amherst Street elevation was provided to us also without windows. So I don't know if that's a mistake of layers or whatever, but that really makes it look foreboding. The third floor plan also, in terms of the massing of the house and why you could do something about it, the third floor plan, which is entirely a master bedroom suite, shows there's plenty of room to reduce the bulk of this house, so that needs to be done. There's a longitudinal section provided that does not depict how much occupiable space there is on the 4th floor and portrays it having as a minimal attic when it actually isn't. So they need to provide a section that actually goes through the occupiable attic space. They also should show the heights on the sections, as the plan indicates at the attic, that there's an 8-foot ceiling height available for most of that level. They should also provide the floor area diagrams of the floors, especially for the 3rd and 4th floors, so we see what is being counted to floor area. The FAR study, though, shows that there are a few other houses on the social block with .99 or under FAR, most of which being BSA permit recipients, which again goes to the subject of how is neighborhood character affected by these permits. The lot coverage study also shows some houses in the 40% range, which is what's being requested. And the streetscape study shows no 4-story, 44-foot high houses, and you can't compare these 1- and 2-family home heights to multiple dwellings in other zoning districts. That's what they're doing. They're saying, look, we're the same height as this 5-story.
That in R6 zoning districts.
There you go.
Performance.
Right. They should provide a rendering showing the house in context, but only after they reduce the massing, so they don't spend money on a rendering needlessly. Those are my comments. Please, anybody?
I agree with you, the building massing is significantly higher, and I think also the way the building has been treated adds to that volume and bulk appearance. I also had a question with regards to the FRC level, which in this case, the FRC level is at least 9 feet. And as per ZR 6461, if it is at least 9 feet above the curb level, they need to ensure 2 visual mitigation elements, and I'm not sure both of them have been addressed. I think one has been addressed, which is raising the front yard, but that's not indicated in the sections or axonometric, so it's not clear. And the shrubs and that's going to be provided is also not shown in the plan, so we need to clearly have those indicated in the plot plan. And again, I also have the same question with regards to the FAR analysis. I think using the buildings that are in R6 zoning district is not the way to show how many buildings are in compliance. It has to be in the appropriate zoning district with regards to FAR and building height.
FAR and height. Commissioner Otley Brown?
No additional comments.
Okay.
Item number 3, 2016-4340BZ, 13102 40th Road, Queens.
Okay, we have proof of service to officials and proof of notice to neighbors, notice of hearing to officials and neighbors. Community Board 7 recommended approval. We have a Port Authority letter of approval indicating the maximum heights and an FAA determination of no hazard to air navigation, stating the maximum height of all structures at this site is 201 feet above ground level and 213 feet above mean sea level based on 16 case study points on these 3 towers. The FAA determination indicates that there are several areas of penetration into the standard measurement criteria, including the LaGuardia Runaway 13-4, I don't know how you describe that, 41 departure surface, that it exceeds 150-foot height of horizontal plane above the airport elevation. However, the FAA states these were not considered to impede traffic patterns or approaches or departure routes. Red obstruction lighting must be installed at FAA specified locations, and there's 3 locations that are stated by number. Use of cranes or other equipment that exceeds the maximum height require FAA approval prior to their installation. I didn't find in the materials a chart or a statement in the statement of facts summarizing the ZR 61-20 or 21 criteria for maximum heights and indicating which approaches are penetrated by the project. We normally require that an aviation engineer prepare this analysis and clearly explain to the board the zoning resolution penetrations as well as the FAA penetration criteria. We recently received an excellent example of one that was that can be used as a model, and I think maybe they even just reach out to that same consultant, but they probably already have a consultant who prepared what the FAA needed, so that consultant should use the same model. This is a way for the board to really verify that it's exercising its due diligence in reviewing these applications. Anybody else on this?
So I had some question, and I did discuss this with our Commissioner Montanez before she
As
left.
you should.
So one of those was that NAVD 88 is not equal to the average mean sea level as it's been indicated in the drawings. There is a difference, and that needs to be corrected. That goes to the issue of the highest point that has been indicated as 201 as above ground level, and 213, which is the same as NAVD 88 and average mean sea level. I don't know whether that includes the light or not, and that needs to be clarified.
Yeah, it has to be the highest
It has to be the highest point, including the light, and that is not indicated clearly in the drawing. So that needs to be clarified. The plan references as of right height limit in red. Now need to clarify in the plan and the statement of finding the difference between the height indicated in the plan and which one is related to the FAA and which one is related to the zoning resolution. There is a green line and a red line, and it's not clear which is for what purposes. And I think I know which one it is, but the statement of findings does not clearly reflect that. So that those need to be coordinated. Again, need to clarify that above ground level and the average mean sea level and NAVD.
It's above mean sea level.
Sorry, above mean sea level and NAVD. We need 3 numbers separately laid out. It's not the above mean sea level and NAVD being the same. They are not.
Right.
And that affects the FAA's horizontal surface calculation, which is not the same as the zoning resolutions, flat construction area. So all of those need further clarification, and I agree the engineering report will help further clarify that.
Right. I mean, so what we found on a previous one was the architect's drawings on the previous one were really difficult to review. These are better, but the engineering report that was provided went step by step through each of the surfaces, both the FAA surfaces and the zoning resolution surfaces, and at each point said it complies or it exceeds by X, and the reason it's okay that it exceeds by X is Y,
And
right?
since the zoning resolution by NAVD, that
Yes.
element has to be also
Yes,
clarified.
because the buildings department only uses NAVD 88, right, correct. Okay, these are tricky ones, so,
Yeah, we had one comment on the environmental. The applicant submitted a secret checklist that said this was a type 1. However, that would require an EAS. However, I think it might be a type 2, but we do need a noise analysis to determine if
Okay,
it's a type 2 or not.
okay. So we need a noise analysis then, okay.
How did we handle the previous case in that? Was that a type 2 or a type?
And we had a noise analysis.
We did have
Oh.
a analysis, okay.
Usually they just.
Give it to us.
They screen it out. Noise analysis.
But they'll provide all the
But it's in our list that you have.
Okay.
Right. And the FAA may have even required something like that too, I would think, as part of their whole neighborhood analysis in general, given being in the flight path must be a real issue when you live there. You know. Okay.
Item number 4, 2017-1BZ, 570 Melrose Avenue, the Bronx.
Okay, we have proof of service to officials and proof of notice of hearing to officials and neighbors. We do need a community board recommendation, which I didn't find, but we do have DOI and we still need fire department. But as far as I could tell, this is not operating.
It wasn't clear if the building is vacant or not. There is some ground floor use.
The building's being worked on.
Yeah.
Oh, it's really?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's in the middle of a big gut rehabilitation at the moment.
It's beautiful.
Okay.
The plans don't have the rooms labeled, so it's hard to tell
Yes,
whether or not
what's
there's
going on.
going to be a massage.
Yeah, it's actually impossible to tell what's going on. It's just that we know what these guys do, Link Fitness. But they really should explain what's going on.
And there are several DOB violations and ECB violations. They should clarify that. Some of them are related to rusted steel beams and partially collapsed roof. So those should be clarified as to how those are being addressed.
But this is a tenant, so, and if the building's under construction, the tenant doesn't fix the steel beams. So this is the thing always with these
Fair enough.
PCEs,
Fair enough.
unless it's a dedicated elevator or something to the PCE, we tend not to impose on them maintenance of the landlord's
But
buildings.
there's a vacate order on this, so.
So, but they're not there.
Those will have to be addressed only
Yeah.
after that.
So it seems if the building's under renovation, then the renovation is taken care of the dangerous structural conditions, and the tenant's not going to move in until the work's done. Right, that, yeah. Okay. Okay.
Item number 5, 2017-36BZ, 55 Prospect Street, Brooklyn.
Okay, this is a legalization, which they told us. We do have proof of service to officials and proof of notice of hearing to officials and neighbors. Community Board 2 recommended approval, though 2 were opposed. We have 1 letter in support. We have DOI, but we need the fire department. They did,
Department just submitted.
Oh, they did?
This morning.
Ah.
And no objection.
no objection, okay. Okay, so they were able to look at whatever they looked at. I don't know how they did this, so the photos show fire alarms and sprinkler heads. Maybe because the fire alarm and sprinkler plans were submitted along with the DOB sign-offs. Maybe that was enough for them. I'd like to know when the facility opened. Also, the site plan doesn't show how you get into the facility from the street. Sort of existential, or maybe it's ontological. I'm never sure which one.
Didn't it open January 2017?
Did it say
Yeah.
that? Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Yep.
All right.
This concludes the public review session for July 17, 2017.